We are in the final stretch before training camp, and we have all the latest news from the past week for you guys. Let's go.
Brace yourself for the ultimate Carolina Panthers experience. Welcome to Two Growls, One Roar, the podcast that hits harder than a Luke Kuechly tackle. We're diving deep into the heart of Panther Nation, bringing you unrivaled passion, insider takes, and pure gridiron fire. From Wilmington to the cosmos, this is your home for the fiercest football talk east or west of Charlotte.
Welcome into another edition of the Two Growls, One Roar podcast. Appreciate you guys. As always, please hit the subscribe button. We have a lot to talk through. Now, we'll admit it's slowed down. The news, because you don't have OTAs, because you don't have minicamp, you don't get to hear from players. The news is slow. Now, the Carolina Panthers decided yesterday, as I record this on Monday, June 16th, to release an image of a Panther claw slash on social media. And fans thought, oh, are we getting new uniforms? I was one of those. Are we getting a new helmet, a new combo? Well, it turned out to be a social media post that has a video behind it that talks about the Carolina Panthers leaving our mark and what that means. I don't know if this is a full-on rebrand, if they're trying to move on from keep pounding. I don't know. I would think that they can't move on from that phrase, whether Tepper in the front office want to keep pounding out of here or not. Leave our mark strong. I just don't think that people are going to stop talking about this, man. Welcome in, folks, to another edition of the Two Growls, One Roar podcast, folks. The whistles are done for mandatory minicamp. No more practices, no more pressers. So now we sit in this phase for the next 5 weeks of just sifting through potential signings, trying to begin to make 53-man roster predictions, analyzing the current roster, talking about weaknesses, position battles, who's going to be up front. And, well, today we're going to get you guys caught up on all the latest Panthers news. So appreciate you guys for tuning in. If you are on a podcast platform, please follow the show. Give us 5 stars. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty of everything that's happened really over the last week or so, we got to take a second to analyze the social media posts from the Carolina Panthers yesterday that led to some speculation. So they published a picture late yesterday afternoon of, a Panther claw slash. You guys can go out and look at it. And some began to speculate, including me. Are we getting new uniform combos? Are we getting new helmets? Like, what is this going to lead to? And it turned out to be this social media campaign for this new phrase or slogan for the Carolina Panthers, which is directly on Panthers.com right now: leave our mark. Now, some folks buying into this, some folks not buying into it. I think it's cool, but I also get there's some funny people out here in Panthers country, and some are taking the leave our mark to the next level and getting pictures of Matt Rule, pictures of Gaffney and the Peach and all these other things, and putting slash marks through it, the 3 slash marks that the Carolina Panthers had, and saying leave our mark with that as the image. I'm just saying, y'all are wild. Like, let's be honest. Y'all are wild. Now, you also have some folks that are speculating if this is them pushing out keep pounding. I know from what we've heard over the years, at least the last few years, that maybe the Teppers don't like keep pounding as the slogan. Maybe they're trying to push this forward. Anyways, leave our mark is now there. It's a cool video. It's kind of getting you and some hype and some anticipation coming up for the season. Still a ways to go. I'm a fan of it. Like, it's okay. I still, as we talk about this on the side, would love some new uniform updates, new primary helmet, all those things. Like, I think we could benefit. But as we talk about the Carolina Panthers leaving, as they say, leaving our mark, but leaving their mark, coming up on this season and what that's going to mean. There's a lot of chatter coming out of the Carolinas right now, whether it's the NFL picking up Chuba Hubbard, talking about going to the Super Bowl, or that's the goal. You have all these slow pieces of news trickling in. Adam Thielen, and we're not the old Carolina Panthers. Like all those things, it's funny because what happens is, of course, we as local folks hear this stuff as soon as it comes out, and then our team folks cover it. It gets out there, we talk about it. But you know what? The national media is going to take a cycle to get through for folks to realize, like, oh, they said this, this, and this, and now I'm going to pull that soundbite, or I'm going to pull this headline and this clip so I can get my clicks and views. I mean, it makes sense for the larger media that doesn't cover a specific team, your NFL.com, your ESPN's, Bleacher Report, all these shows, whoever it is, they got to aggregate this stuff, and they want clicks and views, and you start throwing up headlines like that related to the Carolina Panthers, and people are going to have a view. They're going to potentially laugh at it. I mean, in some instances, but I think I like the sentiment because – yes, and maybe not Super Bowl aspirations in particular this year as far as like my being realistic as a fan, but for the team internally, I appreciate it. For Adam Thielen and company and a few others that are ready to get back to what we consider the old Carolina Panthers, I think it's a positive first step. And to be honest, I don't know that we've really had any type of view like this for the Panthers or motivation in quite a while. It was this identity crisis of who are we, what are we, Matt Rule, Frank Wright, again, everything that's happened in between then, and now getting Dave Canales in here to really establish a culture and identity and doing it the right way, taking his time, feels like he's got the runway, working with a great front office now, Dan Morgan, Brant Tillis, all those guys, Eric Eager, your analytics guy. So the Carolina Panthers are making a positive shift. But I am like some folks when I say, to a certain extent, that a lot of this talk, if we want to call it talk, it needs to be backed up. It has to be backed up this year. And it's not to put pressure on the team to say that I am expecting to get, again, 9 or 10 wins. And I think I just saw NFL or somebody talking about Bryce Young in this coming up season. I think it was NFL.com on X. Put out a post about Bryce Young and showing clips of him talking to Jalen Hurts and other players within the NFL and how this is going to be a big year for him, which I do think it is. Don't get me wrong at all. But I think for us, as we are fans of this team, yes, we want Super Bowls. We want playoff wins. We want to win the NFC South, all those things. But we also want to see progress. One step forward at a time. Like, let's win. Like we've said, if you are new to this show or you don't listen to me, my bar for this team is above or at 500 in November and December. And I know that may sound pretty low bar, but the Carolina Panthers haven't done that in about 4 years. Been around the 500 record that late in the season. They just haven't. And so if you're going to take the next step forward, show me that. Panthers' schedule is favorable early. They don't have that many difficult games this year. They have a top 10, I think it's actually top 8, top 6. Easiest schedule based off of win percentage from last year. Now, again, year to year, we know there's no guarantee that the team and the record that you saw, because if you took that into account, you'd say the Carolina Panthers are going to be bad this year. So we know year to year, these things change within the teams, but the foundation that has been built, what we've heard people talk about, building off of the progress from last year, and hearing Bryce Young. And I almost wanted to do, and I may do an entire segment on Bryce Young and his leadership this year in year 3. He's finally comfortable. He's settled in. You think about, in any situation, having to have sudden change, move around, think about your job in particular. You get hired, you get trained, and then the person that's leading the train, one doesn't really know what they're doing, and then they get fired. And so now you're having to sift through, and they bring in someone else. And now you're finally getting your feet settled underneath you. There's stability. You know that your job's not on the line anymore. Same thing happens in football, man. And you've now given him the second year with Dave Canales. We've all talked about the progress we expect, the continuity on the offense, the next level that we are going to be able to get in. And they're going to work together in tandem. And when Dave Canales trusts Bryce Young, you're going to give him an opportunity to make some plays, to take some risk. That's not expecting Bryce Young to be a perfect quarterback this year, but a much improved. And man, wouldn't it be something to have him? And I feel crazy saying this. This is kind of my bolder prediction. I am not saying he's going to be an MVP candidate, but in the mix as far as production and what he means to this team. How about MVP of the Carolina Panthers themselves and carrying this team forward? It's big. I think it's going to be a really big year for Bryce Young. And for a lot of folks that doubted him, and maybe you still do, a chance to prove people wrong, but they got to do it. And they got the schedule to do that on the first half of this season. It's not too difficult. It gives you an opportunity. You need to be 5 or 6 wins within the first 10 games of the season. That's just me. 5-5, 6-4, somewhere within that range, and in the mix down the stretch. That's all we're asking for. So the other thing I'll say is, like, yes, you're going to have this quote unquote talk session season going on right now because, I mean, you can't play the games and players are going to get asked questions. They're just like us. They're motivated. They're athletes. And it's not a cockiness, I would say, but I think it is a turning the page, turning the corner, and the leadership that needs to be within to establish a new culture of winning football games and being competitive down the stretch. So I look forward to it. It's nice. It's nice to be somewhat respected. I'm not going to say it's like the Panthers themselves are locked in here to being this robust team and winning a bunch of football games or anything like that. I know what I was going to say because I got sidetracked. I have to go back to my notes. But the vocalization of Bryce Young, and we talk about trash talk. Again, I still wonder if he's dropping F-bombs or not and what his trash talk game looks like. But it's a big difference from when you hear about Clowney talking about him last year and other guys. Hey, he's quiet. He's this. He's this. He's trying to get his feet underneath him. And now we're seeing the vocal side of him come out to play. He's comfortable, one with Canales, with the team itself, the offense, and being the leader of the team, like knowing I'm the face of the franchise. I can play football. I'm a heck of a football player. I've done this my entire life. And so now I'm going to go out there and I'm going to prove it. I'm going to show you guys exactly what I can do. So that edginess, talking, I'm all for it. It's exciting, man. It's an exciting time. And when we go out looking at through some of the headlines, and I know we've touched on these, so I'm not going to spend too much time today talking through. There's some news I want to get into centered around the safety conversation that's happening. We know some things have popped up over, I guess, like the last few days, in particular, Justin Simmons as a potential, but not potential acquisition or piece to come here in Carolina. So we'll keep our focus there. I think for me, and I almost did it on today's episode too, we're going to continue to talk about wide receiver. And it's just one of those things. When we start number crunching, I would say the Carolina Panthers are likely in the realm of keeping 6 wide receivers as it sits today. You look at the league average is around 6. Some carry 5. Some carry up to 7. Considering where the Panthers sit, and they may carry 3 running backs or potentially 4. Look at the offensive line depth, what they've added on defense. You start doing your number crunches, and there's just not as many options available, not as many roster slots for the guys that you need. So I look for this, like we said, to be a true competition coming down the stretch, and one that we're excited about, especially in comparison, like we've said, to years past with this receiving core. And it's no knock on some of the guys that were here previously, but it is a different situation by far than what we've had here before. I mean, just looking back over the last few years with the Terrace Marshall Jr., Laviska Shenault, Amir Smith-Marset, DJ Chark, Mingo in the mix. I mean, Shi Smith at one point as well. You think about those, and yeah, DJ Moore for a small period there as well. But just thinking about over the last, I mean, Derek Wright, CJ Saunders, some of these names, you're like, ooh, what? Yeah, it's a very different situation for the Carolina Panthers to have this competition. I mean, I even go back, Rashard Higgins, forgot all about him. I was looking back at some of the notes we had on the receiving core, and of course, Adam Thielen was here. Adam Thielen really the lone receiver out of that group from 2023 when Bryce Young entered. And I don't know how many people would have thought out of that bunch of receivers that were here that Adam Thielen would be the one that made it through this entire thing, would be the best connection that Bryce Young had. That just shows you, though, in a 2-year span, Carolina Panthers, and shout out to Adam Gold, ESPN 99, The Fan in Raleigh, North Carolina, who said this as well, but you have a 2-year makeover for what was one of the weakest or the weakest positions. I mean, there was a lot of weaknesses, unfortunately, with a team as bad as they were, but easily one of the weakest positions on this team, and turning that into a strength. And you consider it a strength because you're now talking about, we have too many guys that are good. We're going to have to make tough decisions to get our roster down. And so it's a big change. It is. And again, it's the competitiveness that has been talked about here in Carolina with Dave Canales and what he's trying to emphasize. It's early, but there's a strong case. I think Adam Thielen, Xavier, Tetterell McMillan, Jalen Coker. I know there's a lot of, I don't know if it's controversy, but some folks that are still out on Coker. Not, I think most reasonable folks understand, like, yes, he's there, but I consider those 4 locks. And then it's going to get fun with Jimmy Horn Jr., who we think should be there, Hunter Renfrow, and David Moore. Again, the back half for the final 2 spots will come down to those 3 players, in my opinion. But I don't think we can just say, hey, this is absolutely how it's going to be. You have Jacoby George and Kobe Hudson, undrafted free agents, similar paths to what we saw Jalen Coker go through, that have had some decent production. And again, it's going to come down to special teams contributions, not just in the return game, but again, are you able to be a gunner? Can you join kickoff? Whatever it is, to be able to add impact and help out the team. Because, yeah, we know we're not lining up in 6 or 7 wide receiver sets. So how can they get into it, make the field, get on the roster itself and be productive? Not to mention, we know on game day roster, things are changed. You can get 48 active players up. So, all right, folks, getting into some injury news, and then we are going to talk about some of the speculation at the safety position. In case you missed it, sounds like Derrick Brown is on track after coming off of the meniscus tear that happened, I mean, almost a year ago in week 1 of the season. Aiming for a full return and to be on the field during training camp. We know that he's going to wear a brace. We look at the significant depth that's been added. You talk about another position that's been turned over, or group itself. Turk, Bobby Brown III, Cam Jackson. On top of already having A'Shawn Robinson, and you throw Derrick Brown into the mix, sets them up well. The biggest injury, which thankfully the Panthers are relatively healthy coming out of minicamp OTAs in the spring, heading into this final stretch, monitoring Tommy Tremble in his path to getting back is going to be probably the biggest thing. Is he going to be ready? There's potential he could go on PUP at the start of training camp. Again, we'll see. I personally think, if you could get him back at the end of the preseason, Panthers likely could play a game or 2 without him. I mean, it's not like he's there to put up a lot of production, but he is the veteran within the room. I do think Ja'Tavion Sanders, who's lost some weight, is going to be a bigger impact in the passing game this year. But you like what Tommy Tremble can do as a blocker. Fortunately for the Panthers, you do have Mitchell Evans, who you drafted this year, who's going to sit there with them. But still think some depth is needed at the tight end. However, the Panthers, if they may look at a few of these guys that are kind of practice squad borderline to potentially make the roster. So that's probably the most significant news. And Amari Barno, if you're tracking into the minutia of every player that's in here, how to clean out procedure. I know he tore his ACL. It's been like over a year ago, back in 23, worked his way back in 2024, playing 5 games. Curious to see, like, as we talk about making cuts and roster moves, he may not be there. I don't know. Not sure about his timeline after the clean out. Trevin Wallace, who we know missed some time at the end of the season, coming off that shoulder surgery, back at practice, paired alongside Josie Jewell. See how that's going to pan out. Both of those guys missed some time. Again, would have loved another linebacker addition, but I guess it just wasn't in the Panthers' cards right now. John Radigan's been moving pretty fast. I'll tell you that from the clips that we've seen. And then Jimmy Horn Jr., who was sidelined with a hamstring during training camp, or minicamp, I should say, is working through his return to play protocol. I know he was there on the last day, so you feel like Panthers are probably going to be okay. A lot of position battles brewing. We've already talked about wide receiver, talked about the center position a little bit, Austin Corbett, Cade Mays. You still think about the outside linebacking group and the core there that's going to be middle linebacker, safety. Again, we're going to talk about some names here in just a second, but the safety battle and cornerback. I think the only position group or position groups, running back, but then you still have Etienne and Blackshear competing, so that's in the mix. We talked about wide receiver, quarterback's a lock. Offensive line outside of the center position is good to go there. So it's going to be a fun one, man. A lot of hard decisions, but it's good to have hard decisions because it means you're expanding and making your entire roster better. It's much, much better than what it has been. And, man, the Panthers need that. And I think, coming off of a 5-win season, sets them up pretty nicely, in my opinion, heading into this year, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Now, there are still some gaps. We know probably the most notable one that we're going to continue to hear conversations around are going to be the safety position. What can the Carolina Panthers do to bring in some additional depth? And now they drafted Lathan Ransom. We know Damani Richardson. Those two guys, there's potential that one of those could be your starter, possibly Damani Richardson. We'll see as we get into this. But there's also the rumor mill that is going to continue to be out there, especially as we get towards camp. We know that teams like to sign guys like right on the edge, getting in there, and the veterans, which some of these are, and they're a little bit older, but I don't think they mind missing some of the earlier time there. So probably most notably, at least recently, I should say, is Justin Simmons. It was reported by ESPN. It was Ryan Fowler on a podcast. Jeremy Fowler, get this right, flip my Fowlers there. There was a clip of him. I reposted part of an excerpt where he was talking about that on X if you have not seen it. Justin Simmons in the mix. I think we're still curious about Julian Blackmon and then Marcus Williams, although I'd rather have Blackmon over Williams, just where we sit. But I think we're going to continue to hear conversations about safety. What are the Carolina Panthers going to do to bring in additional depth at the safety position? And you know what? The Panthers may be just stuck with where they are in the roster, and it is what it is to a certain extent. The Carolina Panthers can only do so much. You look at offense and the offensive line last year, which has improved, adding a little bit at the wide receiver position. And now the offense this year seems to be in a much better state. Defense feels like the replica of last year, so you get a good solid foundation again on the interior. With the line, then you're able to build out of that next year, whether it's free agency or the draft, and putting these guys around to expand. Anyways, folks, that is going to do it for today's episode. This is Carolina Dad. Y'all have a good one.